Welcome to Blaise the Trail podcast, bringing you authentic and vulnerable stories that will inspire you to breathe fire on this world and become your own hero. Here's your host, Blaise Hunter.
Hello, welcome to Blaise the Trail podcast. I'm Blaise Hunter, and I am a fertility expert. No, I don't help people get pregnant. This is a different type of expertise. I actually inspire people to birth confidence and self-worth, to birth their books and business ideas, dreams, passions, and goals, as well as help them discover peace amongst infertility. After going through my own sets of traumas and tragedies, dealing with a rare disease, and experiencing 3 miscarriages, I decided to take charge of my life and not let life happen to me, but rather become the hero of my own life. I am not barren. I continually birth my purpose every day. So that's why I've created this show, to demonstrate how even though we all experience setbacks and disappointments, we still have a destiny to birth. We just need to blaze the trail and be expecting. This podcast will inspire you to lean into your hardships and allow them to be the vehicle that transports you into becoming the hero of your life, so you can breathe fire on this world. This week's episode is called The Artisan Nation, and some points we'll cover are how a woman is using her passion for fabrics to change lives, what drives the human spirit, and how the challenges of COVID launched a project that is empowering women across the world. And I have my friend here, Danielle, to speak on this topic. Danielle is an entrepreneur and founder of Coco, Knit One, Change One, and the Artisan Nation. After a career in music, teaching, and academia, she has a PhD in musicology. Danielle followed her childhood passion of color, texture, and patterning by opening and developing one of Australia's largest independent retail knitting stores. Now her adult passion is caring about and actioning the empowerment of women, especially in developing nations. From her travels across the world and working alongside some of the most beautiful, smart, and talented women, Danielle's mission is to enable them to have an identity and for their voices to be heard. TheArtisanNation.com is a platform that is a bridge between corporates and women who live in villages of developing nations. The Artisan Nation has 3 missions: to have their ladies grow stronger, to unleash their potential, and to provide them with stable, regular work. The Artisan Nation is not bound by geography, language, or culture, but rather unified by passion, creativity, and talent. Danielle and the Artisan Nation are truly changing lives. They do it one village at a time. Welcome, Danielle, to the show.
Hello, Blaise. Thank you. What an introduction.
Thank you. I'm just so honored to have you on today. You know, it is my passion to empower women, and here I am speaking with another woman who has that same type of mantle to take that up and really change the world. And so I'm just truly honored to have you on today. Thank you so much.
Most welcome. And again, thanks, Blaise.
Awesome. So we talked a little bit about your backstory of how you were in musicology and academia and transition, but maybe tell me a little bit more about your journey and how you went from studying music and academia to changing lives across the world.
I know it seems a bit disjointed, but it was really easy and quite organic, actually. Both the fields require a degree of sequential thinking and analysis, so they just morphed and flowed from one into the other. And I was really aware that both the fields needed to become more commercial. And as you mentioned in the introduction, I started with Coco, Knit One Garment, Change One Life, which in essence, it's a hand-knit production house. However, from teaching the women how to hand knit, read English, do basic maths, through the years, I noticed that we were also breaking the education cycle in every village we entered. And so these ladies could now afford to send their children to school, and it was an opportunity that they themselves did not have. And then the more I had Coco, the more I realized that the financial and domestic violence cycle was also being broken, because in reality, we were teaching the ladies how to think. And so slowly, the notion of always being compliant was being broken and being changed. And that's how it morphed to giving these women an identity and a voice became my number one priority.
That's amazing. I love that. And so when you experienced that and seeing what they were facing, did that strike an empathy chord with you? Like what, developed that passion for you to go in that route?
It just made me more determined to let more people in the world know. So the more I realized that we were changing lives along the journey, the more I realized that it was so important for more people to become involved and let the whole world know about them.
Absolutely. I always say your pain is your purpose. And sometimes that actually means your, trauma pain, your emotional pain, the physical pain you've been through in your life. But it could also mean just a problem you've identified in this world that you want to help fix. And I think that truly speaks to your journey, is that you identified a problem and it became your passion and your purpose to help fix it, don't you think?
Yes, because I've always been a bridge my whole life. The Artisan Nation is a bridge. It connects the women in developing countries with corporate, and I myself have been a bridge between my two parents. One parent was raised from a very wealthy background, and one was a very poor background. So I sit very strongly personally in that bridge space. So when I saw these women, I knew that I had the skills to help change the lives of them, not only one villagers, but, there's no resting until we have hundreds of them.
Oh, that's amazing. Yes. And I love that analogy of the bridge, because I think I can relate to that too. I like to empathize deeply and connect deeply with people. And, part of that mission is when I went through my own infertility and 3 miscarriages, I wanted to bridge that gap, that there was something missing in the system and the empathy factor on the front lines with doctors and the patients and parents. So I can totally relate to being that bridge of trying to make something better and make the world a better place. So I think that's what you're doing with all of your work with the Artisan Nation. Maybe explain to me how that came about, because you went from cocoa. How did you actually develop the Artisan Nation?
Well, the Artisan Nation came about as a direct result of the COVID lockdown. At the beginning of the lockdown, I was sent an email from an Indian colleague, and the email said, there are 16 million people in this country that are unemployed right now that are directly involved in the fashion industry. Can you do something? And from working in the country for many years, I knew that the majority of these people were women and they were from villages. So the answer was a resounding yes. And hence the ArtisanNation.com was born. It was a nation that was not going to be bound by geography, language, and culture. And it was a nation that is bound by creativity, passion, and talent. Its DNA is to empower women from developing countries. And so, as I mentioned before, the Artisan Nation is a platform, and it's a direct bridge between corporates who care about women having a voice and finding their identity, and the women themselves that are from developing countries. And I realize that right now there's a lack of synergy between corporate money and women living in developing countries. And so the ArtisanNation.com is the bridge that I invite everybody to walk across.
That's phenomenal. And it's still so new, and yet you've really created a foundation that is just a ripple effect. And so was it received very well, very quickly, or has it been a hard season with COVID and trying to develop this, or what's been your experience with developing it?
It's been really well received because, I could make a bit of a joke out of it, Blaise, but really it's true, right, that you and I were born a woman. We're both raised in this male-dominant world. And I don't know one woman that I've ever spoken with that can't, relate to and want to stand up and be counted for the empowerment of women. So everybody that I share the Artisan Nation with immediately engages and hooks onto it.
I love that, because it really takes support from all to create this new type of empowerment where it's not women are better than men. It means we're leveling up where we stand in our power and women know it and support one another instead of tearing each other down, that we can provide opportunities for people, not just in first world countries, but in everywhere, every part of the world, right?
Yes. And the majority of women actually live in developing nations.
Yes. Oh, I love this conversation because I think it's so important to really highlight these types of projects, highlight what you're doing. It's coming from such a passion-filled place. So that leads me into my next question. What drives your passion about empowering women?
Well, as I mentioned before, it's this whole female thing that, I was born a woman. I was raised by a working mother. I went to an all-girls school where I was constantly told that women could do anything. And then I entered the workforce and I realized that life is really not like that at all. And it really is a male-dominant place. And so, as I mentioned before, Blaise, I'm sure you would agree that our whole sisterhood would stand up and be counted to have their voices heard. Because, I imagined inside, could you imagine having a world where women could never speak? And imagine a world where if they did speak and had their own thoughts, they would be hit or psychologically, screamed at or psychologically damaged. And that's what it's like for these women in developing countries, or for the most of the women. They were raised to be compliant. And do what their parents want them to do. They have arranged marriages. And if they speak with their own thoughts, there really seriously is severe psychological and physical consequences. And so which female do you know who would stand by and allow this to happen? I mean, I just can't do that. And I don't know any woman that would stand by and allow that to happen. And so that's what drives my passion.
I love that. We talk about, I can't even imagine living in those types of cultures because we are very fortunate to be in, developed nations where we have rights and different things. But, equal rights is still not equal. Even in where I am in Canada, I'm not sure how it is in Australia, but, I didn't have self-esteem growing up. I didn't have a good outlook on myself. So even though in Canada, I allowed boyfriends to physically and emotionally abuse me, I allowed them to take my voice away. And that's been my journey with my book and my Blaise the Trail podcast and my work that I do, is that releasing those shackles of silence and removing the muzzle of shame, and that my voice shouldn't be heard, and to allow myself to step into that. So I can relate, I feel for those women in those different countries and those different cultures that have their voice being taken away. And I value and honor you, the work you're doing to give them that opportunity to raise their voice, to raise their vibration, to hold their power, to hold their head up high and say, we have purpose and we have rights and we have a unique destiny to step into. And just because we're women, that doesn't mean anything. It means we're just empowered. And I love that work that you're doing. And I love how you're empowered because of my life experiences, I'm empowered to do that and change the world one voice at a time, right? And that's what we're supposed to do together, right?
Yes. My mission is to change one village at a time.
Yes. We all have this unique path, and that's yours, and it's amazing, and you're doing it. That's amazing.
Thank you. Thank you.
And so you've seen the real struggles of all these different women all over the world. My show's all about being vulnerable. What is something that you've personally struggled with and overcome or want to overcome?
Well, you won't be surprised to hear, Blaise, that it is having a voice. So when I was a little girl, I was really scared to speak, and I was so scared to speak and I was so scared to express myself that I actually failed year 12 English.
Wow.
And so when you fail English, you can't get into any universities. So that's just being a big disappointment to anybody.
Right.
And I just didn't ever want to do the wrong thing. And so I became very scared, and I know what it feels like to want to please and to consequently be compliant. because you can't please. And so we all have our own identity wrapped up in our family and work life. And if our identity is a family life of subservience, there is no work for the women in developing countries, that would mean that more than 1/10 of the world's population would have their voices suppressed and be unsupported. And that's how I came into realizing that, helping these people and female empowerment is so important. The Artisan Nation, as I explained before, has at its very core to enable these women to have stronger bodies, to unleash their potential, and to have them all attain stable work. And this is what will enable these women to overcome their obstacles. So I'm gathering a team of women that together we will support other women in developing nations to overcome their struggles.
That's amazing. Like, wow. And to know that you struggled, with your own voice at one point in your life, that's amazing that you're using that and channeling it and changing, like you said, one village at a time and changing the world and empowering each other. And you not only empower others, I'm sure as you can attest, like along with my work, I empower myself every time I give and every time I do this. It's an empowerment to myself, actually. And so was there an actual catalytic moment that made you shift and want to take back your voice? Or was it just a series of things that you developed and improved over time? Or what was that made you shift?
I just never wanted to feel like a failure. So I knew that until I found my verbal voice and my written voice, that I wouldn't feel good inside. And that's why I can relate to these women so much, because if they can't, the feeling inside is drastic.
Yes. And, it is partly getting the help from others, but it's also having that internal drive to help myself too, right? So it's a combination, because there was a moment where I was in an abusive relationship and I just thought, is this my life? Is this how the story ends? Is this how I envisioned, that little girl growing up and marrying, and this is the Prince Charming. This is the guy that makes me cry and hurts me every day. And it became this internal drive to say, no, I want to be in charge of my life. But sometimes we don't have that. Sometimes we don't have the luxury of having that inner dialogue. So we need the others to help and support and give us different perspectives and opportunities. And I think that's where you play an important role, is you're creating this opportunity to help women and help them see that they do have a voice and they do have a purpose. So I really, truly attest to like what you're doing in this world and applaud you for it.
Thank you.
And so walk us through the Artisan Nation. Through COVID, you developed this idea. Like, what do you actually do with this platform?
So ensuring that the whole world gets involved with the artisannation.com is my number one goal. So to support these women, it's necessary to go to the platform, the artisannation.com, and read about our 3 missions and how the missions are activated. Our 3 missions are enabling women to grow stronger, unleashing their potential, and attaining work. Then you just keep scrolling down and you'll see the 3 packages that companies can get involved with. An individual can become involved, but really it's companies to become involved, because we do need to change one whole village at a time, not just one family at a time. And so you can see how each dollar invested into the Artisan Nation can either activate 1 village, 3 villages, or 9 villages for people to be able to create their own future. And if you go to the artisannation.com, you'll see all that laid out on the front page. And then if you scroll down, you'll see a bit about me as well.
Yes. And you're like we've been learning about, you are just a fabulous woman. And I really know that it's coming from a heart place. And I think that's what's so important, is we can change the world. We can change a voice. We can change a village, but always checking back that it's coming from that heart space, because you can move mountains when it's tapped into that right source. Don't you think?
100%. And the more that companies feel connected with developing these women in developing countries, the more that they will realize that the world will be a more colourful place if they get engaged with the artisannation.com. And so the world needs both sides of the bridge to work equally.
Yes. And I believe, vulnerability and connection and collaboration are what drive the human spirit. Why is connecting and bridging so important to you?
Oh, connecting women from around the world is crucial. Could you imagine a world that was all run by men and there were no females or no female voices? It's a place where women need to stay inside, or, if women had to stay inside all day and connect with no one, how could that possibly be? And apart from anything else, Blaise, I'm sure you know, connection between women prevent anxiety and depression. And we all know that connection contributes to life purpose and longevity. Connection is super important, because these women from villages in developing countries don't have enough connection. There is a high mortality rate. And how could you, or would you, stand by and allow this to happen when you know all you need to do is join the artisannation.com or send an email? All you've got to do is decide which group of women that you would like to connect with. And, connection is the key.
It is. Connection is everything. And it needs to come back to that core, no matter what we're doing, no matter where we are in the world, no matter what journey you are on, we need to get back to that core value of connecting to one another, right?
100%.
Fabulous. So what is next for you? How can people get involved if they're interested, no matter where they are in the world? And how can people connect with you if they're needing more information?
People can connect with me directly through the artisannation.com. You can click on there and directly connect with me. It's Danielle at the artisannation.com. But to get involved, they need to go to the artisannation.com, decide how many villages they want to support, and it has a line there, get in touch by emailing me, and click here.
Wonderful.
Anybody who gets involved, we give them monthly feedback via their own personal video. So it's like watching a documentary. The subscriptions are monthly. So instead of subscribing to a popular streaming movie platform, they can watch their own personalized documentary of how the impact that they are having on the Artisan Nation is supporting these women and enabling them to have a voice and to have their identity known by the whole world.
That's amazing. What a phenomenal project that you've just tapped into organically, because you're coming from that heart space and coming from that desire to bridge gaps. So thank you so much for coming on today. Is there anything else you wanted to add or touch on?
No, thank you so much, Blaise, for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Wonderful. We'll just recap some of the things we talked about, how Danielle and the Artisan Nation is changing lives across this world. Connecting women from around the world is crucial. Connection reduces depression and anxiety amongst women in these nations. The Artisan Nation is changing one village at a time, and Danielle is committed to bridging those gaps across this world. So thank you so much for coming on today and just sharing your heart with us. So we appreciate you sharing your project and your passion and what you're doing for the world. Thank you so much, Danielle.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Blaise.
If you want to learn more about my consulting programs, purchase my book, or have me speak at your next event, visit blaisehunter.com. I do have a free offer for everyone. You know, we're in a pandemic. Sometimes we can feel lost and overwhelmed and have anxiety. Well, what do we do when we're driving and we feel lost? We Google Maps that stuff, right? We go to the map. So I've created a map video of how to guide you through the mess of the day of overwhelm and anxiety and get you back to a place of peace and balance. So head to my website, head to the free offers tab. You can download my map video there. And that's it for this week's episode. Challenge yourself to be vulnerable, lean into the difficulties, and have those open conversations so we can rise up as the heroes of our lives and let us breathe fire together. If you've enjoyed this show, please subscribe and support Blaise the Trail podcast. Reviews are always welcome and very much appreciated. Thanks for listening. I'm Blaise Hunter.
You've been listening to Blaise the Trail with Blaise Hunter. To learn more about how you can breathe fire and unleash the hero within, or to listen to past episodes, visit blaisehunter.com.